Learn firsthand from successful business owners and create your own path to success.
I'm going to show you how great I am.
It's time to hit the road to growth with team lead of the Enriquez Group, Realtor Vinny.
Hi, you Realtor Growth listeners. Today I have Caroline Yuki. She is the owner of Bold Millionaire in the real estate field, just giving knowledge back and helping people take their life, I guess, to the next level. Thank you, Caroline, for being here.
Yes, thank you, Vinny. I love the intro music. It's always pumping and all that. So yeah, so my real estate journey mainly it started when during the recession. Like everybody's all scared about losing their jobs and all that. And I remember as an engineer back then, I finished like all these assignments, and then one day the director says like, "Oh, he's flying into town and he wants to have a meeting." And I remember being excited because I haven't seen him for a year. At the same time, I thought this is such an odd time to have a meeting with me, and then he said, "Okay, for this meeting, we need to go to HR." And that's when I realized, like, oh no, I had heard the company was doing like a 5% reduction, and I know our business department was really small. Like basically, I built a lot of manufacturing plants overseas, and we were going to cut budget and slow down. But I had never thought it was going to be me to be part of that reduction force because I worked so hard. I built, I put a ton of time into it. I sacrificed so much of my personal lifetime, worked 80-hour weeks to get this going. I had really good performance reviews. So I remember that walk over to HR was like probably the most depressing moment of my life, and trying to think like, why me? Why is this happening to me? And by the time I got to the HR's office, I was just like holding up my tears, and he's like, "Okay, well, we need you to do this packet. It really is not a personal thing. You performed really well. It's just that you're the youngest engineer here, and we have other more seasoned, more senior engineers who've gone through 2 rounds of layoffs already. So the people that we're keeping, we absolutely have to keep. And we know that, you're bright, you're hardworking, you'll have no problem finding a new job. So we think like it's best probably, that you're going to be the one to go, because you have the highest chance of basically bouncing back really well. Everybody else is really close to retirement age. They cannot take a hit. Like they got kids in college. And so I remember feeling like, oh, so I'm getting hit because, I don't have kids, I'm single. Like either way you look at it, it just didn't feel right. So I remember just being like, oh my gosh, I can't believe this is happening to me. And then the HR manager, then he left the room. Then it was just me and the HR manager. And then she's crying, I'm crying. She gives me a box of tissues. And she says, like, she totally understands how I feel, because she says after she's done giving out these packages, they also let her go. So she's also got to pack up and leave too. So it was just one of the moments I was like, wow, like, how is this happening? So I think there was a sense of identity crisis, because all that time I had been so excited about, being this manufacturing representative. It was my identity. And then I remember just feeling like, wow, who am I after this? Like what happens when I don't have my role identity? And I also realized I had been relying on corporate income for so long that was my only source of cash flow. And so I remember thinking like, wow, how am I going to live from here and go on? And they had basically arranged me to work with a consultant who was going to help me, update my resume, teach me how to go look for jobs. And I remember the biggest thing I learned from him was, like how to write a cover letter, but actually more importantly, he gave me this booklet. And in the booklet, it was basically talking about evaluating your living expense and how to barter your services in exchange for those living expenses, so you didn't have to change your lifestyle. And that's when that aha moment, went off me, because at that point I was used to going to the gym. I was going, to the spa. Like there was a certain, I guess, lifestyle I was used to. So I started offering my services in marketing and sales to basically help these businesses grow their business in exchange for continuing the services, so I didn't have to, basically spend anything, and then still continue that standard of living. And then negotiating also with the rental office. But at that time, I remember just feeling so vulnerable, relying on corporate income. And then that's when I started digging into like how are people making it if they didn't have, a corporate job, and then looking into that passive income mindset and researching real estate investing, rental properties and all that. So that, Vinny, is how that journey to real estate investing started. It all came from an epiphany of a job loss of income, and then realizing that this is a very vulnerable position to be in, and then I want to be able to do better in the future. So in the future, like, I'm not always relying on that source income, and that's when I started pivoting into rental property and learning about that. Yeah.
Wow. I mean, you weren't lying. That intro really got you going. It was almost like he shot out of a canyon going, all right, let me just jump into this. I'm gonna tell you my story. I'm gonna tell you how I got here.
Yes, it's just, yeah, it was just such a emotional moment, and I was just like, wow, this is really real. And I remember when I had to let my apartment property leasing office, and I was like, hey, I just lost my job, like I might need to move. Like, she was stone cold. She didn't really care. She's like, oh, so basically you're breaking the lease, so you're not going to get your deposit back, and you need to do this. Like, I just realized that everything in my world felt like it was turning around upside down. And sometimes in life, that's what it feels like. We're going through, like these patches in life, and we could be at a low point, but everything around us doesn't skip a beat. Everybody else keeps going on. And so that's why I kept thinking, I got to figure this out, because, like, this is basically me needing to figure out how to move up from here. And in Asian or Chinese words, there's this word, basically it means danger or crisis. And in these moments, like what I learned on one of my manufacturing trips in Vietnam, I'll never forget that one of the commissioning, like, senior directors, like, he's told me, like, like, always turn a crisis, a danger, into opportunity. And that's what I saw was my crisis at the time. My crisis was, this job loss of income and all that. How do I turn this into an opportunity and pivot? And that's when I pulled out my journal of all these dream projects I used to have that I could not do because I was committed to my job. I wanted to travel to Europe. I wanted to do a social entrepreneurship project. I wanted to teach marketing and sales because that was what I was passionate about. It didn't align with my job, but those were things that I really enjoyed doing. And I thought, like, wow, what better time to work on these passion projects, because now I have an opportunity of time to do so. Now I said, like, instead of looking at it as, a layoff time and feel really bummed and stay at home and all that, like, I'm going to work out these projects, and then basically look at it as, like a short 6 month, vacation time frame to get all these passion projects acted out and all that. And then that started a trip to Europe. I'd basically backpack Europe for 2 months. And you're probably asking, Vinny, it's like, well, how did you have the money to do that then if you're already worried about cash? So what I did is I noticed that in Europe, they're always looking for tour guides and translators. So I had signed up for a group Europe trip to basically go travel 12 countries. And then I asked them, like, do you need people who would lead the same kind of tour? Like, if you let me go on this tour in English, I could also lead a tour in Japanese or Chinese. And they're like, oh, wow, you can do that? I was like, yes. So I was studying every country, like Hungary, Budapest, Slovenia, and basically learning how the tour guide did that. And then in return, they let me be the tour guide out there for the 12 countries. And then I got food room and board. So I was just like, wow, this is amazing. Now I get to have my dream, little vacation role, and in exchange for my value and services of showing all these other people around. And nobody ever doubted that I was an expert, because I have the answer for every single question. Like, I studied all the travel guides enough, and I had stories, and so it was a blast. But I was just letting people know there's always a way to think about how you can take your skills, your knowledge, and add value and contribute, and then you can always figure out how to work things out. Like, if you're always feeling oh, I can't do this project because I'm limited with monetary, like cash resources, there's other ways that you can get done. Just ask people what they need, and then all it is your contribution of your energy, your time, your knowledge. But it's basically just an exchange, and all that. It's possible. So that's what I wanted to share, yeah, with your
So
community there.
you said you were used to be an introvert, right?
Yes, yes. I've always been an introvert. I still am. There's
Yeah.
times that, after like a whole night of, networking, I say like, okay, I need to just kind of sit down and decompress and listen to some music and relax. Like I grew up really shy. Like I was always an introvert. And so that was the growth that I had to really push myself on. And I think I was sometime in college when I came to the US. Like I came from Japan and Taiwan, and I still was super shy. And I remember I was so shy, like although there were slang words, I didn't understand what they meant, but I didn't want to ask people why either. So I knew basic English, good morning, how are you? I'm fine, thank you. But I didn't know the slang. So Vinny, one time a classmate asked me, hey Caroline, what's up? I literally just like looked up at the ceiling and I was like, what are you looking at? So I didn't know what what's up meant. But I was too embarrassed to ask him what does what's up mean? So what I did is next time I saw this kid walking down the hall, I said, hey, what's up? And then he started talking, telling me what's going on. I'm like, oh, okay, that's what what's up means. It means like, how are you or what's happening kind of thing. So I just kind of figure it out. And so I think it was one day, like one of my classmates, she was actually, being encouraging. And she said something I remember that really hit me, and it was kind of painful because I told her, I was like, yeah, I really want to join these clubs. I want to meet more people, but I'm really shy is what I told her. And she said, Caroline, shy gets you nowhere. And I remember it just felt like it stung because I knew she was right, but I was also so mad because I'm like, well, how do I not be shy? And then that's when I realized that I could just make a decision to just keep being how I am, and then give being shy the reason why I could not go out and do big things. And then I realized like, no, I don't have to keep being shy. Like, I can basically push myself outside my comfort zone to speak to more people. And that's when I started making these goals. And as there's that great book, How to Win Friends and Influence People. And then I was also reading, The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. And he talks about, that the perception, making goals for yourself. So I remember making goals like after each class, like I have to talk to 2 classmates I don't know. It can be about anything, but at least I had to talk to 2 classmates. So I just really had to just push myself. And then over time, then that will be, 4 people, 5 people. And until this day, when I go to real estate conferences, I mean, that's how I push myself. If I'm going to 10, I got to talk to 10 people I don't know. And then just kind of just keep pushing myself out of my comfort zone. And what I've learned is, not everyone's an extrovert out there either. And then they appreciate when you walk up to them and just start the conversation. Like not everybody has that initiative that they're going to walk up to people they don't know. Like sometimes you walk into a big networking room and you're just comfortable looking for people, you scan the room and you find who and you gravitate towards there. And I'll start out like that, but then I also try to, just let them know that I'm going to go meet other people and let them do the same thing, and then move myself otherwise. So I think Vinny, it's a journey of just constantly pushing myself outside my comfort zone. Like it's like I get nervous, like being in front of a lot of people and all that. But then I realized that, putting myself out there, it's also, I guess putting the truth out, what you stand for, letting people know what you do. Because if you don't let people know what you do, what you're doing, then they can't help you either. And that's the other thing I learned is like people are willing to help. They just need to know what you need or what you're looking for. And if I'm not, stepping outside my comfort zone and asking for help, like how are people going to offer it?
So first off, your English is fantastic, and it's surprising that you didn't know English at such a young age before you came out this way. Secondly, I'm your how do I say this? Your responses, like I just asked if you're an introvert, and that response took about 5 minutes, right?
Hmm.
Which is more rare, right? Having a lot of information. Do you think the ability to talk on a small subject and bring it out, I guess, to a longer point, is more towards um, being that you've done so many interviews, or that nervousness, or is it knowing kind of how you want to kind of guide the conversation? Where do you think that kind of come from?
Oh, like how I speak to a subject a lot. I think I just like to share stories. So
Yeah.
like people go off on a word, oh, tell me a time, you felt like introverted or you're nervous. And I'm like, oh, I was just like, oh, I got to share you this story. So it's more of that excitement to share. That's something I'm passionate about. Like I always like to share, and sometimes I over talk a lot. But it's
Yeah.
once people start, just kind of poking to get an idea, then I'm like, oh, okay, I could tell you about this time that this happened and all that. So I think being an introvert, I'm looking for opportunity to speak, but I feel I always need to be invited or somebody needs to invite me to speak. For example, Vinny, like if we were on a conference call and everybody was giving out their ideas, like I would wait for everybody to finish before I felt like I had space to talk. And in a corporate setting, that was kind of a disadvantage to me because sometimes if I waited too long for everybody to speak because I didn't want it to speak over people, and that's something one of my corporate mentors told me too. She's like, in Asia, she noticed like people wait for people, to finish speaking, then they follow. In corporate America, it's like you overlap each other. And I noticed that too. Like as someone hasn't finished a sentence, somebody else will jump in, but I
Mm.
wasn't comfortable in doing that. And so I got wait for my turn. And then they're like, okay, move on to the next thing. So then I never get a chance to speak. So that's probably when that introvertedness, shows up, is what, like waiting for my turn to speak. Right now, it's just me and you. So I'm not waiting for somebody else to finish. And that's why you can hear me sharing these stories, or else I'd be the person kind of waiting for my turn. I would have to wait. Like Vinny's like, okay, Caroline, what do you think? And then I'll speak.
So do you think it's more of a natural state for yourself to share stories and give your input, and it's more of an unnatural state to, I guess, hold back?
Holding back stories. I think it's more of, I guess, situational. Like if I know that I'm pressed with time, people are just looking for one word responses, then I'll follow the same, format, framework. I think it's also that feeling of you want to share, but then you're waiting for an opportunity to share, to be invited to share. So it's part of that energy is just like bottled up. And so
Mm.
when there is an opportunity to speak, I get excited because like, oh yes, I do have something I want to say about it. But nobody invited me to speak or nobody asked me for my input. So I've been waiting for so long. And that's why I think it just comes out and spurts out like a story, because I did have something I wanted to share, but then I didn't know if people were interested to hear me out. So
For
that's
well,
why.
like for example, you said sales, like you talked about the idea of learning kind of how to sell, right? You had a negative
Mhm,
idea towards sales. And for the most part, what I've looked at and trained my team, and I mean, sales is about kind of hearing what the other person has to say and then kind of providing the information. You can't really guide the conversation with a long, I guess, story or information. I mean,
mhm,
at least from my experience, and it can be totally different. When you're
yeah.
dealing with your clients, are you how is that process? Who's Caroline in that kind of setting?
I'm definitely more the listener. Like when I get on a sales call or consultation call, it's just like, okay, tell me, more about your business, what you're looking for. And usually they go off like 5, 10 minutes on a monologue or a rant, just going on complaining or expressing what they're upset with, and just like listening and listening. And then then I would probably try to identify what, like try to get clarity. It's like, oh, so is the issue you're not getting enough demand, or is the issue that you don't feel like your marketing strong enough, just trying to pinpoint it. So more like kind of consulting. And then after that, just like give them like what I think would be a good path forward. I don't share so many stories until they ask me for examples. So they'll say, like, tell me about another business that this worked for, and then I'll talk about business models and all that. So I think the stories come out, yeah, when I'm trying to share an example. I think it's just illustrated better to be
Yeah.
able to give that whole, framework. This is the situation, that business was in. This is what we did, and then the results and all that.
Does it feel like, I mean, because I know when I first really started focusing on sales, back in the day, it was like a fire hose, right?
Hmm.
Me, the water trying to come out because I wanted to provide that information, and me holding back the water as much as possible, allowing them to kind of talk so I could
Hmm.
listen and maybe give spurts of kind of that water hose, but not just blow it all over on them. right? So for yourself, was that the any kind of balancing act for yourself of kind of doing that, or is that just two personalities for you? Does that make sense?
Great question. Yeah, it does feel that way whenever I'm talking about something I'm passionate about. Like if somebody asks me, like, "Oh, what would be a different way as opposed to closing on a client?" And I'll say, "Oh, you want to open relationships? Like stop thinking of it as a close." And so I'll get excited about that. And what I had to do is also stop myself from explaining. Like if they got the point, just stop there, because I did get feedback that I love to teach, and so I'll kind of keep explaining, but not everyone's interested in all the reasoning behind that. So
Yeah.
I learned that, if they ask, "Oh, tell me more," then I'll explain more. But if not, it's just give them the simple response. So I guess I look for cues, Vinny. Like if they ask for more background, then I'll explain more. If not, I have to kind of, resist myself and just kind of stop there, because that's something that I've learned too in sales calls. It's not about so much me talking. 98% is really supposed to be about the other person and just listening what they want and everything. So that's where I really had to stop myself from explaining too much, or even if I knew the solution, to stop myself from trying to coach them or teach them, "Oh, this is how you should do it," and all that. Like they're not, that's not what the call purpose is. It's just really focus on them and them sharing like what it is they're looking for.
And with your, I mean, your ability to, I guess, paint a picture, right? Tell a
Hmm.
story. And then when did the idea of putting together the Bold Millionaire? I mean, it's an informational based platform that allows people to understand the ability to get that passive income. So, I mean, it seems like it's a good synergy of your past with basically
Hmm.
providing the information for they can kind of read about your journey. When did that idea come about to kind of just throw it out on a website and kind of build this platform?
Yeah, so that self-bidding is another story too. So mentioned that I started, yeah, rental property family. So then that got me into real estate conferences, learning about foreclosures, wholesales. Then I thought I should be a real estate agent, and that's when I signed up with Keller Williams. So I was doing all the things, and I had met a lady that she was married, and her husband unfortunately had pancreatic cancer, and it was going on for very long. And so during the last 2 years she knew that he was going to go, but emotionally, like, she's just there by his side trying to take care of him. And then when he passed away, she was just overwhelmed with all these legal papers and things to sign off, the stepson asking for her to sign off on things, and she did not know how to manage her finances. And then she basically was overwhelmed, like looking at stock infos, asset information. She had the house and all that. So then she sought out, like, basically financial advisors, wealth advisors, started asking around, like, who can help her with organizing all this and tell her what to do with, this money that he left behind for her. And at the same time, she's grieving too. And so she found somebody that, from word of mouth. And then she went to him. And then unfortunately, like, not saying that all wealth advisors do that, but this guy basically had bad intentions and got her bank account information, all that, told him that she's going to take care of her, and basically he scammed her of $600,000. Like, all that money
Mm.
was just all gone. Yeah, and the moral of the story I tell people, it's not that you don't trust your wealth advisors, financial advisors, but it's really the reason why people give that power away is because they don't trust their own decisions. I don't trust my own money investing decisions. So I'd rather pay someone that I just met for half an hour with my life assets, because they'll know more than me. And so that idea of Bold Millionaire is more like an empowerment that, yes, I can make my own money investment decisions. And I noticed too, when I was doing sales, like, a lot of times when I ask people their goals and all that, like, they want to say they want to be a millionaire, but then they're almost too afraid to say it. And that's where the bold came out too. It's like we have to be courageous, decisive. And as I was working in consulting and helping small business owners, when I ask the men, like, what is your future monthly goal? And they'll all say, like, I want to make 1 million a month. And the woman will say, like, okay, yeah, I'll be happy with 7,000 a month. It's almost like they weren't shooting far enough. And it's
Mm.
like, like, we all are here, if you're in business, you basically want to, basically grow exponentially. Like, why not, be a millionaire? And so that's where that name came about. And then building the business Like you asked about like how that worked together with sales. I think I've learned through the sales journey, because it was so uncomfortable at first. I've learned two different sales styles. Like one was that rah rah, Grant Cardone style. It's like keep going at it, keep following up. And then I learned, even going through sales, it's a very uncomfortable journey to do sales, because when people say no, it's easy to take it, personally, and feel rejected and all that. So that itself was like a whole growth transformation process as well. So that's where the Bold Millionaire, it came together. It's like a combination of, believing in yourself to make those goals, like, and then at the same time, thinking of life, in abundance at the same time. Because what I learned, Vinny, when I offered to help people with real estate investing and teaching them, then they will tell me, I believe that real estate, you can make money. I just don't believe I can make money from it. So then there was that confidence thing, like, oh, can I really make this work? They see it work for other people, but they're just not sure whether they can do it themselves. So that's where that came together.
Well, I'm going to push back a tad bit. I mean, I know
Hmm.
you had the person about the one wealth advisor right there.
Hmm.
My feedback on that for that person and for
Hmm.
anyone listening right now is, it doesn't matter what profession you're in. I see so many people that have a bad experience, right? Especially in real estate and wealth advising, and they don't tell other people about that bad experience. Or I hear if someone get a referral for a realtor, wealth advisor, financial advisor, whoever it is, and they don't vet the person. Oh, my cousin is that person. Oh, or
Hmm.
my second cousin, whoever it might be. But vet them. Look someone up. Google. If they don't have some sort of online presence, you got
Hmm.
to be very careful of that. I mean, unless they're looking to get out of the business in the next couple of years, they should probably have some sort of online presence. So if you're not looking that up, you're doing yourself a disservice.
Yes, that's great tips, Vinny. Yes. I think sometimes we're so credulous that we just listen, like, oh, this person recommended him and he's doing fine, that person, and then we just believe it and don't research enough. And so absolutely, yeah, I completely agree with that. And I mean, because it's such a big role too. And I think some people give the excuse because I'm Gen X, so you're not going to see me a lot online. So what do you
Yeah.
think about that, Vinny? They're just using it as excuse, like, well, the real old fashioned way, you just deal things with a handshake. So I don't do
I mean,
websites.
it's, I mean, even, I mean, if you, I mean, let's say you started your business in the 90s, you probably still have some, I mean, you've probably, if you've been in the business in the 90s, right, that's what, 30 some years, right? Maybe you don't have online presence, but you should have a list. If you're going to go really old fashioned, a booklet of past clients that have worked with you, that like
Yeah.
you. So if they say, oh, well, I don't have an online presence because that's not me, I'm basically old age, well, then you know what, pull out that book of
Hmm.
testimonials. Let me get those phone numbers because I'm going to be making some phone calls to actually vet you. I
Hmm.
mean, it's, if there's an excuse out there for anyone, I mean, it goes back to you, whoever it is, to vet that person and make sure that you're taking care of. Because again, like you talked about, right? I mean, people don't think about it. They go, okay, 9 to 5, I'm going to work my job. But if they're looking to grow their business, grow their money, grow their life, right? It's going to be those small steps and having, I mean, those trusted people. Even for yourself, you're powering these people, right, to do it themselves. Yet they still have to have some trust in you that you have the right
Hmm.
information and guiding them in the right direction.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's that whole trust and verify. And sometimes it feels uncomfortable. You're having a good conversation. It's like, oh, by the way, may I talk to, your past clients or resources? Because then you feel like, oh, are they going to think I don't trust them and all that? But in the end of the game, like, we have to look out for ourselves, and they should be happy and willing to share those contacts if they have nothing to hide. I often find some agencies, consultancies, they're only going to publish the positive experiences. I mean, we know that they control, what testimonials they're going to put on the website, and that's something I agree. It's really missing in the real estate world, that we don't see, like, basically what bad things that go on with people. They're only going to post the good. In fact, I did do business once with a real estate investor, And it was a nightmare doing business with him. Like, he wasn't doing his part, he wasn't paying people he had a contract with. It was really hard. Yet it really frustrates me when I see him posting on social media, because then he posts the good things. Like, oh, I finished this project. This is the returns I got. This is the next project I'm going. And I always think to myself, like, wow, I can't believe he can keep going. He's done all these things, but then, nobody's gonna, really complain, expose it, and he can keep going on social media saying that how great he is and draw on new investors, and they won't know. So I do wish that there was some kind of a Yelp for real estate, that people can just, for investors, by investors, they could just share their openness, but we
Well, I
don't
mean,
have that.
with investors, with clients, whoever it is, I mean, you have to look at it. I mean, I think for
Mhm,
most people,
mhm,
is it's a huge investment, and you signed off on that person, right? So you're basically stamping saying that I trust this person. Now, if they
mhm.
take advantage of you, right, you're saying my decision was the wrong decision, and most people are afraid to be basically honest with the wrong decision. Yet, anyone listening
Yes.
right now, I've had a multitude of business owners on this podcast, and the most common theme through everyone is that if you're not failing, you're not growing. As long as you learn from that fail, take it to the next level, take it to the next level. So if you've lost out, that person that lost that $600,000 that you talked about, or three, whatever that
Mhm,
number was, right?
mhm.
That's a lot to pay for college, but you got a college lesson that hopefully,
Yes.
you can
Mhm.
use that for your next journey right there. So don't be afraid of the failure. I failed multitude of times, right? I still fail today, but I know I'm pushing myself out of the comfort zone. So for anyone out there, if you fail, post it, put it out there. You're helping out that next person. So that's my
Absolutely. I love
li-
it. Mhm.
little rant. Now, Caroline, if we were talking in 5 years from now, where do you look to take your business? I mean, I know you have a lot of different ventures out there. Do you look to expand to other avenues? Where do you look to take it?
I'm looking to build up the Bold Millionaire financial education piece. Right now, I'm taking class in nonprofit structure knowledge. Just feel because I feel like this financial education piece is key. We don't have a lot of information out there on how people can protect themselves from fraud. So that's the social entrepreneurship leg. And then on the other piece, I'm learning more about apartment investing, commercial real estate investing. So I'm basically going to continue on that avenue to work with teams and work with different teams, because yeah, learning from you, Vinny, it's like we learn from our mistakes, and my mistake was I learned through a friend that I'll go with this team, and then learned that it wasn't a great experience. So again, that was my failure of not basically vetting him out. And so continue going that avenue. I have another project of doing affordable housing for the missing middle. So
Hmm.
that's my apartment investing goals. Like, oftentimes we find in a city, basically in Houston, Texas, that is. And it's to live in a city, basically you need to make about 80K a year to afford to live in apartments and above. And then there's people who do low income housing that the government provides them support. And then the missing middle is the people who make above that minimum wage, above 30K. So they're between 45 and 55K. They are the paramedics, the teachers, the police officers. They work in the city, but they cannot afford to live there. So they're always commuting like over an hour away. So my thought is basically to buy apartments that are close to that city area, and then basically flip them and then provide them at more affordable cost range for these people in this missing middle range. So that's the next project I'm working on.
Now, you talked about you learn your lesson from that failure with working with that team. If someone's listening right now and they're looking to do something similar to what you did about maybe partnering up with a team, what are some of the things you learn from that failure that other people can take away and make sure that they don't do those things, or when they look to join a team, they do those things?
Yes, I think what was really holding me back to ask the uncomfortable questions, like, "Oh, can you show me proof of your past, or can I talk to other people who've done business?" It's because I'm very bashful. It's part of the introvertedness. Like, I feel
Mm.
a little guilty to ask those questions, because I think it comes across that I don't trust them. But when other people ask me of those, like, hey, well, show me your past real estate, transaction history, show me the returns, I gladly show it to them. And then I also have that respect and trust for them, because I realize, like, this is the questions they're going to ask each time they work with someone new. And the fact that they do their own due diligence means that I can trust them to be on my team to be very thorough as well. So I guess the advice I would share for those who feel uncomfortable asking or are shy like me, they feel kind of bashful asking those questions, is think about like, what kind of person would you want on your team? Would you want someone who felt uncomfortable and thus they didn't ask the very important questions, or would you rather they ask the uncomfortable questions and then basically that's how they will conduct their business, and in the future you would feel much more comfortable having them on your team because you already know how they operate.
Well, thank you, Caroline, for being here. We're right now filming this in March, and as most of you know, the audio goes out in a couple months. So the stuff that happens now, she might be having other teams, other companies, all that stuff going on by the time the audio comes out. And the question I want to finish it off with, Caroline, where do you see the Texas market going by the end of this year?
Oh, the end of this year. This is time, like, after the pandemic, basically a lot of people from California have been buying up all the land around San Antonio, Austin. It's all like flooding the market. So right now, there's not a lot of housing supply because I guess builders are unsure about the cost of materials, and then they don't want to guarantee a price build and all that. So I think the Texas market, it continues to be a very hot place because the no state taxes and all that, and there's a lot of people moving here. I think that whole Austin San Antonio area, it's like basically gonna all get built out. Land is getting really expensive and it's hard to buy land and build on. So I think the Texas market will continue to be strong and all that, and then with Tesla coming, that outside area of Austin's gonna boom. So I think it's just gonna keep growing. Is basically what I feel.
Do you think the
Like
values are going to keep going up?
the value on that, I believe it's still really strong. Like, I've with my rental property houses, that's a question I've been asking myself: is now the time to sell? Because as a rental property owner, people want to sell at the peak. Is like, is it going to go down next year? But I haven't seen yet any indication other than people saying that the mortgage loan rates are increasing, interest rates, that the market has not broken even. It's still a seller's market currently. And I feel, yeah, with rental property prices, I mean, it's just a good time to just evaluate, like, why am I holding on to a property when there's other avenues to really to get that cash flow and income and all that. So that's something you can evaluate. But as far as, yeah, the market wise, like, I think, yeah, Texas will be strong a long time. We can just tell just from the traffic, like 2 p.m. you could be driving, there's so many people on the road. It's starting to feel like California now, Vinny. To get anywhere, there's like an hour traffic. So we're feeling the growth.
Oh gosh, well, I always say, I mean, we're getting more like LA because the traffic's been getting worse down here. But man, LA traffic is the worst I've seen anywhere.
Mhm.
Um, on the way, if you're looking to get out of LA, come to San Diego or come to Texas. Either way, it might be a little
Yeah,
better
like
traffic wise.
Mhm.
Uh, all right. Well, thank you, Caroline, for being here. If people are listening, what's the best way of them getting more information about you, reaching out to you? What's the best way of going forward?
Sure. If they want to learn more about, yeah, the passive, real estate investing side, like what I did with multifamilies, there's free education on boldmillionaire.com. And then if they want to just learn more about like how to develop, their sales approach, or basically how to manage their future finances or advanced finance planning, get those habits in place, carolineyuki.com, there's a free download of 8 habits of the wealthy mindset and all that, and you can get a free download there as well.
Well, thank you again, Caroline. Everyone listening, go in the show notes right there. You'll find Caroline's information. If you have any questions, Bold Millionaire there too. You have my information if you're looking to get to San Diego. Uh, and it doesn't matter where you are right now, just like Caroline talked about it. She was an engineer, a quote unquote introvert. It's hard for me to believe that, but I'll take her story for that she was an introvert. And look where she's now. I mean, it doesn't matter where you start, it's where you finish and where you're going. So thank you guys for listening. Please subscribe, please share, and go find Caroline. Bye, everyone.